Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a source that claims one of the world's biggest crypto exchanges, Coinbase, pulled off a huge coordinated manipulation of XRP. The analysis we're looking at says this wasn't just another day at the office. No, this was a strategic move with some seriously global implications.
Okay, so this whole thing really kicks off with one number that just jumps right off the page, minus 69%. According to the source, in just a matter of weeks, Coinbase's stash of XRP took a nosedive by that much. Now, that's way more than just, tweaking a portfolio. A number like that really makes you stop and ask, what is going on here?
So, what does a 69% drop actually look like in cold, hard numbers? Well, according to this analysis, it paints a picture of a really dramatic shift in Coinbase's whole position as one of the major players holding XRP.
I mean, the sheer scale of this change is just wow. The data cited from XRP Scan shows that Coinbase went from being the fifth biggest XRP holder on the planet, sitting on 780 million tokens, to suddenly barely even making the top 10 with only 199 million. That is a massive drop-off of 581 million XRP practically overnight.
And just to put a dollar figure on that, we're not talking about small change here. The source figures this fire sale was worth somewhere around $300 million at the time. That is a huge amount of selling pressure to just dump onto any market.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just the size of the sale that's got people raising their eyebrows. The analysis claims this was anything but a normal market move, and it points to a bunch of patterns that it says are super suspicious, basically suggesting this whole thing was engineered.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question this source is asking. Was this just a regular business decision? A standard rebalancing to reduce their risk? Or was it something more calculated, more deliberately designed, like the analysis alleges?
See, the source argues that the way they sold the XRP is the real smoking gun. It points to some very specific tactics: selling in the dead of night when fewer people are trading, splitting up huge sales into a bunch of smaller ones to fly under the radar, and putting up massive sell walls to stop any price rallies in their tracks. The claim is that these aren't normal selling methods. They're designed to hammer the price down while staying as invisible as possible.
And this chart? This really paints a picture. The source alleges that a wild 72% of all that selling happened between 2 and 5 in the morning UTC time. Now, why does that matter? Well, that's a window when global trading volume is usually at its absolute lowest. The theory is, with hardly any buyers around, a massive sale can do way more damage to the price.
To try and prove this, the source even built its own tool. They call it the XRP Suppression Index. It's basically a custom model they made to see if there's a direct connection between when Coinbase was selling and when XRP's price suddenly hit a ceiling and couldn't go any higher.
And this is the crucial part. According to the analysis, the model spits out this number, a 0.87 correlation. Now, for anyone who doesn't do stats, a 1.0 is a perfect match. So 0.87, that's an incredibly strong link. And the source makes a big deal of this, saying this pattern is totally unique to Coinbase. No other major exchange left this kind of footprint, which suggests it wasn't a market thing, it was a Coinbase thing.
Okay, so if the how looks suspicious, the next big question is why? Why would they do all this? The source doesn't just stop at the data. It goes on to suggest 3 potential motives for what Coinbase was allegedly doing. And this is where we dive into the murky world of crypto politics and high finance.
So the theory here has a few different layers. First, it claims there was pressure from partners in the Ethereum world. Second, it suggests a classic Wall Street move: knock the price down so that big-shot institutions can scoop it up on the cheap from everyday investors. And third, there's a political angle. The idea was to hurt Ripple's standing and weaken its influence during some really important policy debates happening in the US.
So the analysis then tries to do what every good investigator does: follow the money. It attempts to track where this massive pile of XRP, worth hundreds of millions, actually ended up after it left Coinbase's control.
And here's a really key detail from the source. Instead of just selling it all on the public exchange, a huge chunk, 40%, was apparently moved through private, over-the-counter, or OTC desks. These are basically private sale rooms for huge players, for institutions who want to make big trades without anyone in the public market seeing that.
This timeline is an attempt to connect all the dots, like a breadcrumb trail. The source alleges the XRP left Coinbase, went through these OTC desks in New York and Hong Kong, and then a big piece of it landed in custody wallets that are linked to the financial giant BlackRock. It even claims that the transfers in Hong Kong happened right before major news broke about Ripple's expansion in Asia, which kind of suggests that some very informed players were getting into position ahead of everyone else.
And finally, this is where the source really zooms out from the blockchain data to look at the big picture, the wider, global implications of all this alleged price suppression. The theory here is that this isn't just about one company or one coin. It's about the future of the entire financial system.
So this all builds to the source's grand theory. It's claiming that by deliberately keeping XRP's price low, powerful players are trying to protect the old financial systems like SWIFT from getting disrupted. And at the same time, they're protecting competitors like Ethereum and trying to slow down what the source calls XRP's multiplier effect across the world of finance.
And this is really the ultimate conclusion the analysis comes to. It completely reframes the whole thing. The massive sell-off isn't a sign that XRP is weak. It's a defensive move because XRP is perceived as being so strong, so threatening, that the old financial guard is getting desperate. I mean, that is a bold, bold claim.
So we're left with a pretty stark question at the end of all this. Was this just a strategic, maybe even aggressive business decision by Coinbase to lower its risk? Or does the data laid out by this source point to something bigger, a coordinated campaign to control the price of a major global asset? The analysis makes a pretty compelling case for one side of this really complex story, leaving the market, and you, to wonder what the real truth is.